In this video, we'd like to look at the concept of finding the lowest terms of a fraction. So let's start with a fairly simple fraction, 2/4. What I'm looking to do here is to see if I can make this fraction any simpler, and by that I mean if I can make these numbers lower. The lower the numbers in my fraction, usually the simpler I can make it, and I get it to the point where it can't be made any simpler. So what I can do is I can look at these two numbers and try and find a number that they can both divide nicely by. I can't divide them by different numbers. They've got to divide by the same number because I'm really just dividing them by 1 overall, and I'll show you what that means in a second. I can look at these, and knowing the relationship between these, I can see that both of these numbers will divide nicely by 2. 2 divided by 2, that will work. That will equal 1. And 4 divided by 2, that'll also work. That'll equal 2. Now what's really cool here is that 2 over 2, you might recognize that equals 1. In fact, any fraction. Okay, so any fraction where the numerator and the denominator, like 3/3, 4/4, any fraction where they're the same, that actually equals 1. So what I have done here is I've divided by 1, and we know when I divide by 1 you're not actually changing the value. The value stays exactly the same, but what I've done is by finding these similar numbers in the numerator and the denominator to divide by, I've made it a simpler fraction. Let's go to a slightly more complex one. How about 24 pieces of, let's say, 32? A little more complex. There's a few ways I can do this. The one thing I can do is I can keep halving these, because anytime I have even numbers I know that I can cut those even numbers in half. So I could, for example, just keep dividing by 2's. So I would have in this case 12, and in this case 32 divided by 2 is 16, so 12 pieces over 16. I could divide again by half, and what I would get is 6 over 8, and divide again by half, and what I would end up with would be 3 pieces over 4. I can't divide 3 by 2, so that means that I'm done in this case, 3/4. That's one way I can do it. I can do it in a little faster pace if I really know my multiplication and division well. I can also recognize that 24 and 32 both divide nicely by 8. They're both multiples of 8. So 24 divided by 8 equals 3, 32 divided by 8 equals 4, and look what I got. In a much simpler and faster method, I got 3 over 4. This requires that I know my multiples really well, and grade 7s would have worked on those earlier in the year, so hopefully you are comfortable figuring out what your multiples are.